I'm very happy to see you tune in to the Radio Cozy podcast. It's your humble servant, Leah. We have surely heard of the name Esther, and we may all be familiar with her story. Let's reflect on her life, what she did for her people, and see what we can apply from her life. By the end of this video, I want us all to find the Esther in us. The book of Esther is only 10 chapters long. Feel free to read it whenever you have time. So, in summary, in chapter 1 of the book of Esther, we meet King Xerxes, who ruled over 137 provinces from India to Kash. We also meet Queen Vashti, who didn't obey the commands of King Xerxes and was stripped of a royal title. In chapter 2, we meet Hadassah, also known as Esther, and Mordecai, a cousin who raised her as his daughter. We see how Esther was made King Xerxes' queen in Vashti's place. We also see how Mordecai uncovered a conspiracy against the king and saved his life. Mordecai's deed was recorded in the book of the Annals in the presence of the king. In chapter 3, we meet Haman, the highest of all the nobles of the kingdom, who was mad at Mordecai for not kneeling down to pay him honor. So he plotted to destroy Mordecai and all the Jews living in the whole kingdom of Xerxes. In chapter 4, we see how Mordecai informed Esther of Haman's plan and convinced her to help her people. In chapter 5, we see Queen Esther requesting the king to come to the banquet she prepared for him and Haman. We also see how Haman had so much rage against Mordecai and how he, his wife, and his friends planned to impale Mordecai. In chapter 6, we see Mordecai being honored for saving the king's life back in chapter 2, and how Haman was the one to suggest how he should be honored. In chapter 7, we see how Esther told Haman's evil plan to the king and how the king ordered Haman to be impaled on the pole he prepared for Mordecai. In chapter 8, we see how Esther and Mordecai are given the authority to counteract Haman's plan against the Jews living in the kingdom of Xerxes. In chapter 9, we see how the Jews in the kingdom were authorized to defend themselves and how they defeated all their enemies. We also see how they celebrated the victory and how Mordecai recorded the events and sent letters throughout all the kingdom. And finally, in chapter 10, we see Mordecai's greatness in King Xerxes' kingdom. Esther was a common person like you and me, but God elevated her to being queen for a specific purpose: to save her family and her people. God has put each one of us where we are at right now for a specific purpose. So, we shouldn't lose hope or think that there is nothing good or meaningful we can do in this life. God is using and can use every one of us to accomplish something great. Something that will save our families and friends, our communities and neighborhoods, our cities and countries, ourselves, and even the world. We are created for a specific purpose, so we shouldn't devalue ourselves because of the hard times we are going through. When we open our Bibles in Esther 8:6, Esther says, "For how can I bear to see disaster fall on my people? How can I bear to see the destruction of my family?" Being the queen, Esther didn't forget her family and her people. She cared about them and asked God to help her solve the problem and save her family and people from any harm. She used her position as the queen to talk to King Xerxes and express her worry and sorrow. Wherever life brings us, we shouldn't forget where we come from. We shouldn't forget the weak beginning, but instead we should be willing to always help whenever we can. An important thing to point out is that Esther asked God for help. She knew that she was the king's favorite, but still she asked God to help her succeed. We shouldn't rely on our own capabilities, but always rely on God alone and let Him guide us in the path we have to follow to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Matthew 7:12 tells us, "So, in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets." We shouldn't be like Haman, who wanted people to honor him and was ready to kill those who didn't honor him. Like Esther, we should be humble, put God first, and do to others what we want others to do to us. God never makes a mistake. Where we are at now is where He wants us to be, and He knows the why and what He wants us to accomplish using where we are at and what we are going through right now. Maybe if Esther didn't become queen, Haman would have succeeded. But God knew all along that she would be the queen, and her position would help her save lives throughout all the kingdom. Our God knows our future, and being our Heavenly Father, He can't let anything bad happen to us. Everything He allows to happen to us is for our own good. Yes, sometimes it's hard to accept and understand His will, but we should ask Him to help us accept and understand His will in our lives. We should ask God to show us the purpose for the current season we are in and help us treat others the way we want to be treated. God has put us where we are at for a specific objective. From the youngest to the rising generation and our seasoned elders, may God help us all to find the Esther in us and accomplish the mission we were created for. Thank you for being here. I hope that you have a blessed summer. See you soon.